What is going on? What is going on, people? It is Community Beacon, and I'm here with my brother from another. Look at that smile. Look at the brother smiling.
What's
Shots
going on out there? How you doing there, Mike? How's it
out
going? Happy New Year once again. Glad to see
again.
you.
I'm like Larry David. It's too late in the year to be saying Happy New Year. No more Happy New Year's.
Ooh, you
Larry,
know what? Just for that, Happy New Year times two, Mike, because I love
shouts
you.
out. You see the brother. I'm Mike Seville, the real estate guy here in South Florida. Loving this place. And of course, on the other side of the screen, we got my brother from another mother, the incomparable Joel Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation. It's Friday for you all. This is pre-taped for us, but logistics wise, we had to get some things done and we're making it happen. Uh, I'm excited about this series that we're getting into. Uh,
Yes. Tell them
and
about the series.
it was based. So last week, if you all had a chance to check last week, I know I keep telling you all when you check in, check last week. This stuff kind of builds on on top of it each other. Like if you have the information from before, it's like laying like how did what are these guys talking about? How did it get here? And so last week we spoke about New Year's resolutions, things that at about this time of year and probably a little bit more like last year, but coming into this year, we started thinking about our New Year's resolutions. We started thinking about goals that we want to achieve. How do we want to progress? How do we want to move forward? So, if you were to check out last week's show, we spoke about that. One of the things that kept coming back again and again was clarity and vision. So, when we sat down to think about, hey, what are we going to talk about? What's our next series on? We decided that it being the beginning of the year, this might be a good place for you all to start. I think we start. I know at least I start in like October or November planting seeds. It's just ongoing. But I wasn't always here. I used to always start at zero, right? Every New Year, it was like It felt as if I was starting at zero. But let's talk about our how we. But we're not there anymore, right? We're steadily growing. So at this point, we're going to go into a series helping with clarity and vision. Um, well, is that how we came up with it, brother? I think that's what it was.
That's it. That's it. That's exactly how we came up with it. Just trying to close out the last year and open up the new year with a lot of conversation about being clear on where you want to go. This was a big thing for me, Mike.
Right.
I remember some of my coaches, I would come to them and I would say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you think? This is what I'm thinking about. What do you think? And I began to hear the same thing each time. And they would tell me, Joel, I think you can do whatever you want to do. You just need to get clarity. And I'm like, I'm clear. I know what I want to do. I do. And it will come up again. So, structure is a part of clarity. And I believe that when we start to structure out what we are clear about, it makes it easier for us to speak the words that says, I know which direction I'm going in. Let me give you an example. I know I'm kind of diving into it, but we'll pull back a little bit in just a moment. I'm on it. It's in my mind. So it's one thing to say that I'm going to travel into Florida and I'm going to visit Riviera Beach because I love Peanut Island and I want to go there to dive because it is one of the greatest locations, as they say, in the entire nation to dive because of the coral and the type of animals that are around the reef. That is very specific. That is very clear. Now, if I say, on the other hand, I'm just going to go to a state where there's a beach and I'm hoping that I see some fish that I've never seen before. That's unclear. Now, the two statements are very near to each other because the one individual wants to go diving, They want to see fish, they want to see this or that, whatever. But the other person will just accept any beach. And for those of you all who go diving or at the least snorkeling, you know that you've been to a beach that does not have much fish around. You won't see anything. You may not see any coral. And if you're not seeing coral, you're probably not going to see neat things like lobster or um, sea urchins or starfish, lionfish, all of these different, there's different types of fish. And a lot of fish are attracted to certain areas. So I think that that's what clarity really is all about. If I'm going to go somewhere, I need to know not just where I'm going, but why I'm going. And then I can start to discern how I'm going to get there. And just understanding that the how may change along the way with new information, but knowing that, see, it's hard to even know that you've arrived if you don't know where you're going.
Right.
It's very difficult for you to be successful in that sense. I mean, you can call success as being, hey, I'm not who I was yesterday, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be that better person tomorrow, what does that better person look like first, so that you know that you're doing the right things, that you're getting
Yeah.
the answer. So, I mean, I think that maybe that's a good opening from where
Yeah.
we're to today, and the reason behind how important this thing is. I don't think that this is a an October, November, December, January conversation. I think this is an all year conversation, and sometimes you might be on this trail, this journey of wherever you're going, a better you, and you may need to stop. You may need to go to a rest stop, like they have rest stops on I-95. Every so often, every few 10 to 100 miles, a rest stop. And the rest stop is not designed for you to go and buy snacks. It's not designed for you to go and get fuel. It's designed for you to go and get fluids out of your own body and to take a breather. Sit. They normally have benches underneath trees so that you can clear your mind up and get refocused, re energized, and clear about what you're doing, where you're traveling, and how you want to get there. So I think that, clarity and revisiting the vision is necessary.
Right.
That was a couple things right there.
Yeah, I love it. And you jumped into it, and even the examples that are given, because you getting clarity, like we should have a vision for every part of our life, everything. Like the more clear you get, and the vision. You know what's interesting is that you were talking about the beaches and how we get there. Like a lot of people say, I'm going on vacation. Well, what are you
Mm,
going on vacation to do? I'm going on vacation to recharge. Now, how many of us, and I'm gonna raise my hand, go on a vacation to recharge, and when I come back, I'm not recharged. Like
mm,
I'm just, I almost feel the same. Yeah, I was exposed to something different, a different environment, and so on and so forth. But did I really go back recharge? Some people come back and say, and I'm one of them, I need a vacation from my vacation.
mm,
Like so what's the purpose of it? Right? So if you have a clear and concise reason, a vision of why you're doing these things, or when you get there, the how is negligible. Like you said, I almost expect and I'm hoping that the how changes, because sometimes when we're looking up at this mountain, the vision is the top of the mountain. We're looking up at it and we're thinking about this daunting journey and how we're going to get up there. But as we start to go along and move along this journey, we start to gain what's called experience. And as
mm,
we gain this experience, we start to see ways to be more effective on the journey. Hoping you're learning, that's when you gain the wisdom, because you're learning from this experience. Hopefully you're learning from this experience and you're getting to this vision. um I think it's clear, like the brother said, like to get refocused, how about we just stop and figure out like where we are now. We spoke about this last week, where we are now, which is a beautiful thing. You got here. I would love for everyone to use all the experiences and all the lessons that they've learned. Take that as your foundation, saying like, oh, this is This is what I see, and then now I'm going to move forward because you've also learned some things that you may not necessarily want to repeat. This vision, what you thought about last year, and now you're midway through, or what, however you are, the point that you're at. You may think that this is not this is not what I want for myself, right? Like this is not what I want. This is what somebody else wants, and it looked good. But as I went along this journey, this is just not what I want. So that helps with the vision.
Mm,
We can talk about some best practices because I think like there's just some foundational laws in regards to doing this vision. The brother mentioned one thing, like it's not a November, it is not a September November thing, right? But there are some best practices. Most people start looking forward business wise, if this is what you're doing. We start looking in September because there are some tax adjustments that need to be made, and it's better that you figure it out in September and October and not in January, and so on and so forth. However, once again, these things are just checkpoints. That's why we have quarterly, and I suggest you all do that as well. Do it in your relationships, do it with your kids. Like, are we doing quarterly check-ins with our kids, or are we waiting until the report card, or the end of the year comes and now we're scrambling? It's like, so we get these quarterly things done, but we do have to start somewhere.
mm,
One of the things that the brother and I thought about is possibly in regards to community beacon. Like, what are some of the things that we want to do in order to grow? We always told you that, from the beginning. We said this before, like, we're building it as we fly. So we're still building community beacon. We've come a long way. If you look back at the first episode, it looked like we were probably in jail or something. Like we were like like we were prisoners, with
uh,
black walls, and we didn't even know how to use the iPhone, and getting stream. I think we started off with Zoom, to be honest with you, dealing with Zoom at first, and now graduating to StreamYard, which we still don't have to figure out, which I think is some of the things that I have written down for us to get to go to the next level with it. But I think it'd be awesome if we brought you all on the journey to actually see, like, what things are we going to be implementing in order to grow, and also for us to revisit our vision. um when we first started community beacon, maybe not when we first started, 'cause I think we just were like, let's just go, right? Because sometimes the hardest thing is to get moving. When we first started, at the beginning, I think we had like a 2 or 3 hour session where we went through, and the brother had the tools, where we went through the tools and we were writing a bunch of things down about how we saw the show, some things we wanted to include, what were our reasoning to do it, some of the metrics that we would be going by, so on and so forth. And I think now is a great time for us to revisit that. And we can do that, a lot of that stuff on air for you all to check it out, to see where we go to the next step. And so, I'm excited about this year, excited where we're going to take this with Community Beacon, and also you all seeing in this next, I don't know, 4 to 5, 6 week series, however, at least 4 to 5 week series of how we're going to grow, and give you some ob- tangible objectives that we're going to be using to gauge, where we want to be. And it's not about, the actual goal of it. The goal is more of the target that we're hitting, but it's also to keep us accountable for what it is that we're doing, and we'll show you exactly how we're going to do that.
I like it. I like it. So, first off, the last thing you said, I think that's an awesome idea. I like that, to get on live or to do a recorded version and just go through what we go through, pull up all the information and actually go through um, everything it takes for us to, to write our vision out clearly for Community Beacon and the plan that we have for the future. I love that idea. I love growing. I love growing. That it means a lot to me. I feel like if I'm not growing, I'm dying. And I know that's kind of cliche-ish, but that's the way I feel. I feel if I'm not growing, and I'm dying. I must be doing something wrong. You know, nobody really wants stagnated water. And if it sits there too long, it generally starts to grow something inside of it that is non-productive for human life. So we don't want to be non-productive for human life by becoming, you know, the quote unquote couch potato of peoples, right? So I like that. And, you know, just some of these foundational steps in that beginning of the year. I'm with you, Mike. Man, um, I I didn't realize for quite some time that you needed to start preparing for the new year. I didn't realize it, and so a lot of people, they get to this New Year resolution type of thing, and it's like I always wonder why New Year's resolutions were normally like one or two things. And now I understand it so much better now. Because if I show up to a New Year's Day party and you ask me about my New Year's resolution and I haven't really thought about it, then all I got for you is the things that I got for you. Like, I think my belly's big. I think I'm going to work out more.
I think.
You know, that's what I'm going to do. And then as soon as someone says, I think, no, 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 I'm going to work out more and I'm going to eat better. Starting when are you doing? Because I just saw you eat that sweet potato pie, that pumpkin pie. Well, tomorrow, you know, and it's always like one of those types of things. I think I'm going to save more. And the question is, well, how much have you saved? So it's just like all these different types of things that come up on the spot, and it's like this emotion driven reality check. It's a gut check.
Yeah.
And I think that when that gut check happens, it's because we hadn't thought about anything really. We're just living day by day. For myself, now, I have not written my business plan for the new year yet. Oh, I know. I know. I feel so bad about it. What I have done is I have written multiple entries for the different programs of what I'm doing, how we're going to do it, where we're going to go. And I believe that that is because I took the I took a good deal of the end of my fourth quarter was situational. It was emotional. I mean, I really put a lot of work into one or two things that had to deal with the stability of me as a man. And that overshadowed everything else. My priority changed in fourth quarter. So I had to adjust to that. And I didn't put that time in for this. What I did end up doing, though, is I sat down and I started to go through a list of all the different projects that I have on the table, and I listed them out on paper. I wrote them down on paper, and then I went to each project and I started to write out a plan, a vision plan for each project so that I would be able to move forward in each project. And the next piece for me is to bring all those projects together along with some of the other things that I envision for my next 2 to 3 years, and 1 to 3 years, and put that in place. So my last plan actually lasted, I write a plan and it's going to last me 3 years essentially. So I'm still walking in my last plan. So there's some benefits in that because I don't have to like stop in fourth quarter. However, for as far as the metrics go, these things that Mike is talking about, KOPs, this thing that it's really important to really understand those things. And some of those things I understand them well, but I want to understand them even more because I need to increase in every single area of my life. So I have some of those things on my list and they need to go into that business plan. So maybe I'll show you all my business plan after I put it all together. I'm not doing that one on air because it's such a process. Maybe I will. I don't know. Maybe I'll record myself, but it's such a process, and it takes hours for me. Takes some time because everything is not just like sitting up there waiting for me to just throw it down. So it takes a few days to generate the mind waves to capture this thought and then bring it down to paper and capture that and bring it down to paper. So that's the reason why I just, I have these pieces that I pull together and then I put all of it together. Anyway, that's a little bit about my process. And as I said, I didn't mine's coming through in January. So it is what it is. But we're moving.
I love it. You mentioned a couple things, and I think this is, and it's more important to me than business and all. One of the things that you named, you said you had a couple things that you kind of put to the forefront, and everything else on the back burner towards the end of last year. One of the things that you named was had to do with you being a man and manhood. And I think manhood. No, I know manhood should always be on the forefront. Like this, that part of it, that one thing, the next thing to me is like your spirituality. So these two things are certain things that I just don't think you play with. And you can take, I will shut it all down. I will not take phone calls. I will not take new business. I will leave $1 on the table before I when this part starts to, I need to focus on it when it comes up. So the spirituality part, the manhood part, then up underneath that is the family part. Like these things, I'm shutting it down because these things are worth more to me than any kind of material gain, any kind of things that that are really kind of surface level when you think about it. Because
Yes.
those other things are the things that keep me stable and found, like it keeps me in alignment. If I don't have the manhood part and I don't have the spiritual part, and then the family part is suffering up underneath it, the people who I've been put in charge of, right? If these things are suffering, then the whole thing is for naught. Because then I can gain the world, right?
Mhm.
I can gain the world and still be miserable. And what actually happens is you start to be fooled by these things. We
Mhm.
start to be fooled by the money and the cars and the certain things. Like we're fooled by these things, but we have to keep those. So if these things in your mind need attention, that's it. You know what I mean? Like so there this is not about excuses. This is not about nothing. I heard a guy say once, and he's a very, very, very successful guy who I in business wise I take a look at him and I'm like, okay, yeah, I like how he got there. And you all know it's Patrick Bet David. And I watched him as he built Valuetainment from, 2013 when he had a guy named Mario. I'm still trying to figure out like what happened to Mario. Mario was like his cameraman, his producer back in before he became this big guy who now has this studio. And he said something about, in business, you take time off and you get someone dies, you can take 3 months to 6 months off or whatever it is, and then he was just going through it. Very business minded guy, very smart and intelligent person. This is not a jab at Patrick Bet David at all. As a matter of fact, I turned business down with someone because they disrespected Pat Bet David, and I don't know, and I've never met the guy, but I just have a high respect for him on that aspect of him. But then when I looked at his, I like to study people. I'm looking at the study. I'm like, well, talk about when somebody dies, when your father, who he highly respects, passes away, or his mother, who he loves naturally, passes away, or something happens to his, wife. I'm not wishing this on anybody, but these things are bound to happen. Um, Talk to me then about taking 3 to 6 months off when these things happen. If something happens, if you're strict in your body, like we can't when things that we cannot control, yeah, we can kind of we expect these things to happen, but until you're in that situation, you don't know how you're going to react, or what exactly you're going to need. And you can take it on the chin like a man, but you still need time to quote unquote recover. You're stepping into a new normal when things like when these huge things happen to you.
Mm.
You're stepping into a new normal when things are looking at you. So when we start talking about manhood, which I think manhood and spirituality are pretty similar. But I'm going to separate them just for the sake of this conversation. There's that it is what it is. And now when we start to get focused, now what happens is that you know the first time we get rocked, we take that time off, we get in focus, but after a while we just start to it's a part of it, right? So we start to come to expect these things, so and we're prepared for them. Like, this is the preparation, and as we go through all this thing. So yeah, definitely, people, listen. Manhood, for women, if it's a woman watching this, your womanhood, or whatever you want to call it, spirituality, your family, you know this is a part of that. It should also be a part of your vision, like
Mm.
that. So long-term vision, if we're talking about vision, long-term vision, what does that look like? I had a conversation with Beethoven once, and he said he met a guy's probably 60, in his 60s or something, and he told Beethoven, like, what he's working for, his long no, he's not 60, I think he's in his 50s, but his long-term vision is like when he retires is a ranch and his grandkids to come visit him. You know what I mean? Like, this is his long-term vision. For Christmas, he's already got it planned out. He's like, I want them to be here during Christmas and another time during the year. But I want this huge get together where everyone's coming back home, so to speak, and I get to enjoy that. Like, this is the long-term vision, and then he breaks it down. Now, when we're going into the world and we're coming up with this business plan, I think your long-term vision, your business plan, it better have something to do with your long-term vision. You and this is for the family side of it. Now, like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to base my metric off. Well, if my long-term vision is this, how much am I going to need for it? Can I buy the land now? How
Mhm.
much is it going to cost? We start breaking it down into the metrics of it, of how much is it going to cost, what it is, and now, more importantly, this is how our decisions are going to be made. And this is when we get down to this business plan, how it's easily writable. Like, mine's is so concrete, and I've written it down probably so many times that I'm just like, it's at this point, it's just really about opportunity and putting the things together. And so, at this point, I just faith past most things until I get to the opportunity to rise. It's like everything is just what it is, and I'm just faithing past it because I know that, if it's so willed, it's gonna happen, right? But this is what it is, and this is how I choose what opportunities I want to take and what I don't want to take. I've made a lot of these things real simple in my mind, but that comes from the clarity of writing it down so many times, right? And sticking to it, and not it being based on, oh, I'm gonna kill you with this one. It's not being based on the feeling of the thing. The brother talks about, consistency and discipline, and which is good, right? These are good strategies. I don't base things on the feeling of the thing. I base it on the principle of the thing. So
Mm.
if I'm basing this on the principle of the thing, the feelings, yeah, they come up and I validate them, but ultimately it's going to be what it's going to be, right? Because I'm basing this on the principle that I have. So if I'm not basing it on the feeling, so I'm always using the thought about the gym. If I don't feel like going to the gym, but I want but I want to be healthy, and the principle, and I need to go to the gym in order to be healthy, then I'm gonna go regardless of how I feel. And then what the metrics does is to override these feelings, because I'm not based on my life is not based on my feelings anymore. Is that the metrics come in because it says I need to do 3 sets of 10. I can do more, but I can't do less. That's that. So if I go in the gym and I'm not quote unquote feeling it, okay, maybe less weight, but I'm still going to get these reps out. I'm still going to do the minimum, the standard. I'm going to set the standard. Oh man, I don't even want to go. I don't even want to go deep into that because then we get into standards and how high our standards are and what it because that's going to really be based upon what we're choosing, right? Like now we're setting the standards, but it's a lot to chew on, and I don't want to get all this done in the first episode. We got about 4 to 6 weeks to go, and we're gonna go along these lines. So some of the stuff we're not gonna do online. Some of the stuff me and the brothers gonna talk. We're gonna come and bring you as many notes as possible. But like the brother says, this is not we can't spend an hour just coming up with something haphazard, not haphazardly, but it's gonna take more than an hour, which is what we have with you currently. If the brother wants to extend it, then we'll extend it, or whatever the case may be. So, but some of the things that we're gonna go behind scenes, and because of the logistics wise, we'll go back and forth. Because for me personally, I got to hear the brother's vision. Okay, brother, what's the long term goal? Everything that you got going on now, and then how do we have community beacon aligned to these different goals for both of us? And now we're talking about and then we have to agree on it. You know what I mean? And so then once we agree on it, then we start moving it in that section and planting the seeds in order for this to be fruitful for the both of us, right? So that I think this is going to be. I'm already excited now. I turned up. I turned up on the idea, brother.
I like it. I like it, man. I like it. Sheesh. Yeah. I like that you talked about the gym. Yeah, because I feel like, especially a lot of men can relate to the gym. I mean, most men, listen, let me not start throwing out numbers because I have not researched
I'm gonna
this
give you the
most men.
number.
All right. What I believe that a lot of men would prefer to be fit and healthy than not. That's my belief. And I changed some of those words before they came out of my mind,
I saw
out of my
that.
mouth. I changed some of them, and I made it so that hopefully it would fit and encapsulate more men by the way that I displayed my thought versus the way that I thought my thought. I believe that, and because I believe that that example will resonate with many men, many people, especially in this day and age where I feel like we're in an age where the way you look means so much at different levels. Like, not that you have to look the way I believe you should look, but the way that a person identifies means so much. And that's what I mean by there's a crisis going on, y'all. There is a crisis. Alarm should be blaring. I wish I had something on this keypad right now. I'd be like, bang, bang, I'd hit all because it's like, wake up. I know we're not meant to go into that conversation today, but maybe we will get into that conversation and raise some hairs on the back of some people out there. So I think that that's a good example. I also like what you said at that very end. Amos 3:7. I think it was. Or my Amos 3:2. It might have been. But it talks about how shall two walk together except they agree. I think it was 3:2. And man, I thought about that thing because I think that you should bring men, go get your wife, go get your girlfriend, bring her out for some of these things because a relationship is a relationship. There's different levels of emotional, mental, and spiritual and physical connection in every relationship, but all of those connections are in every single relationship. Don't get it twisted. Every single one of those connections are still emotional, mental, spiritual, physical. They're in every single one of those connections. You have to be connected in order for that relationship to build and develop. I mean, and for men, don't get all crazy with this thing. It could be as simple as me and my boy. When we get together, we have our own handshake. It means something. They joke about it at the job. They're like, "Oh man, the bro shake." You know. And one of my boys, he's a white guy. He's like, "Yo, every single time I shake your hand, I can't get it right. Oh, I just mess it all up. I'm just white as can be." And we just laugh at him. He's a great guy. I love that guy. Shout out to Jeremy Smith. He would not even care that I just mentioned that about him. He would just nod his head and say, "Yep, that was me." Because he's sure about himself. This is a man that's sure about himself. And we could talk like that. But I love this guy. And he'll just say something like that, because me and one of the brothers will slap hands and you hear that thing. And then he'll come in and he'll be like, "I missed it again." I love him. I love him. But how it's Amos 3:3. Can two walk together except they be agreed? So what do I mean by this? Why should you bring your girl out? Because when we start talking about these business types of the community beacon, the business vision, the business plan, and that type of stuff, don't you realize that that vision that we present with each other, we have to figure out a way to agree. Mike and I don't always agree. We don't. We have to find some kind of balance. Mike and I, sometimes we don't even speak it. It's just there. And we have to know that, hey, that's still my boy. I'm still his boy. We're still good. Because it can be like that sometimes. When you get with your wife and you take the time to explore the vision, like these are things that if you're building this early, it's better. If you're building this late, it can take some work. It can take some work. I'll give you an example. Years ago, back when my wife's grandmother used to live with us, abuela, she lived with us, and something came to me while I was in service to God. And I came home and I said, "All right, everybody, we're going to have a family meeting." And she said, "This is something you learned at church." And I kind of like took offense to it, like, yeah, so what? Maybe I learned it at church. Maybe I got a little bit, I got kind of like,
You got offended?
who cares? I'm the man. I can call a family meeting anytime I want, you know? And it was just like one of those things. She was willing to sit down for it, but I don't know if her heart was 100% in on it, right? But she sat down. So when you sit down with your wife and you never had that conversation, you never talked about it, she may just say something like, "You learned that while you were watching them boys on Community Beacon. You saw that on a YouTube channel. You went to that conference last week and all of a sudden you want to put all this stuff in order. Like, where was you last year? Where was you last month?"
Oh man.
I hope y'all are picking up what I'm putting down,
Oh
because that
man.
is the way that I felt when she stated that. It was like, where were you when all that, when, AG double toothpick was breaking out 2 months ago when we couldn't get it together? So you gotta sprinkle this thing in. There's a scripture that teaches us that let our words be sprinkled with grace. You have to sprinkle it in. And sometimes when you come in and you're just like a bull in a china shop, you just make it happen. You're just like, all right, this is what we're doing. And people won't agree, but they all sit down and you do it, and then you do it again and again and again and again and again. And before you know it, people are in tune because you're listening to what they want as well as what you want. And you're finding out a way on how to make the vision come together so that you can have one vision. One vision. If a family is running off of one vision, they'll have more success. Part of the concern is that sometimes the him and the her think that their vision is the only one vision. So they don't bring their vision together. If they
Mm,
can bring their vision together, they can have all that they want. But if their vision stays apart, they will eventually, at some point in time, they will eventually have a dispute because two can't walk together except they agree. At some point in time, you're going to get to a corner of the road, a fork in the road, and somebody's going to say go left, and somebody's going to say go right. Someone's going to say go straight. Someone will say, nah, we missed it, go back.
mm.
Right then, you have a divide. So the vision plan for a family, I believe, that is to save the family from trouble that is on its way. What do you say?
That's deep, brother. You started off. I think all this stuff, like ultimately, everything is is relationships. And so you taking the time to get deep into this relationship is huge for people, because if this is the first time that we're actually doing it and someone sees it, the consistency of this happening, you got to start building some faith. I wrote down, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. What does that mean? That means that most of us have our don't probably don't need to fear hell, because we've already felt a woman scorn. Now, it's human nature. You call it what you want. These are what do you call them? Our softer counterparts can hold on to things for a long period of time. So, like you mentioned, you come in here like this is changing. They're thinking about something that happened 5 years ago, maybe 10. I don't know how long you've been with the person, but they're thinking like this doesn't happen 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So they're, because most people, and if you're the leader, they're watching you anyways. So
Yes.
you're being watched. So you've
Yes.
already made you already have patterns and habits. So anytime the patterns and habits change, and I spoke about this last week, even to the gym, you start up and going to the gym, and all of a sudden you healthy. Well, for the last 5 to 10 years, you weren't. So
Hmm.
somebody in their mind got some questions, and you didn't almost die, but you just came home and say all of a sudden you want to lose you want to have a you want to look a certain kind of way, or you're getting up early in the morning, extra 30 45 minutes on. And so now the person, and this is just human nature, is like, what about me? Where does that leave me? I'm used to this for 5 to 10 years. So if this has not already been going on, people are going to look at you differently. It's
Hmm.
okay, but it's also, it's a different place to be. So the consistency of doing these things, like the brother said. So now I did it the first week, and also the communication aspect is going to be huge as well. Listen, we're having this family meeting and we're going to have this regularly. Make sure you have it regularly, because the more times you start and stop these different things, the more and more you look unstable. And people want to follow someone who at least appears stable, even if it's for 5 minutes. Just make the thing happen. And if it doesn't happen, say when it is going to happen. But don't, the starting and stopping makes some people tend to lose faith in whatever it is. This is the same thing. You're jumping into different businesses. All of a sudden, you want to start a business. Well, you've been working 9 to 5. You've been working that you had a job. Now all of a sudden, this person needs to start to cut down on things because you want to start a business, and then it's a different business every year. I don't know if you know, brother. I know brothers, people who have different businesses every year. Their mind is every which way. You got to stick with it. You know what I mean? And have these different conversations. I'm not saying you don't change, but when you're with someone, the relationship, kids, whatever it is, there's the communication. Respect is due, And that respect comes from, they'll see that with the communication that you have. This is
Mm,
the, I'm, you know,
I like it.
some somebody done went through it before.
I like it,
so
man. I
so
like it. No flip flopping.
flip. So the consistency is there, and really, here's the thing, and that's why, and we spoke about this manhood part, because that's a part of being a man, is to being consistent. A man is stable. One of the first things the brother spoke about was structure. A man brings structure. That's why it's so important for us to, yes, have your feelings, but it's also important for us to reason. It's also the reason and the principle of the thing. Like, these things are happening, and then now we're, so here's the thing: you're starting this business, or you probably got this business going or whatever. Now we're actually sitting here and we're putting some structure to this business. The how may change. You got to over communicate that. I hate the word over too. You got to communicate that. Don't We're not over communicating. We're just communicating. And we're communicating is a two-way street, so you're listening as well. We're paying attention to the cues, so we're communicating. It's going back and forth. This is a two-way street. This is a conversation or whatever it is, and it's natural. That helps with the stability when change happens. Hey, listen, we're gonna have to switch this thing up, right? Because I notice a more effective way of doing this, or we have to put X amount of money to whatever it is. But if the communication is there and it's just a thing that we're doing, it no longer looks like we're flipping. You know what I mean? If you're switching there, no, this is the communication of it. I started here, but here's how this integrates into what it is that we're doing, how to get to ultimately the vision that we've both decided that we want to get to. Because this is the vision, this is a more effective way of us getting here, because there's new information coming in, right? I think 95% of the people, the brother said he don't want to say the numbers. I'm gonna say a number. 95% of the people who are watching this, right? 95% of us, like, these things are gonna happen, and this is going to help you to get past that gap, right? Like, this is how we move through this thing, and we remain stable and foundational, because now we're getting this new information. I got it at some point in time. There was a time when I was doing this and I was doing that, I was doing that. But then once I got the information, I was like, oh, let me stop this, because I'm just doing a bunch of busy stuff. That's funny. Paul told me the other day, he said, I told him to come here. He said, I'm busy. I said, this 3-year-old is telling me that he's busy. And then he said, Dad, you're doing too much. I said, wait a I said,
Oh man,
I said, what is
where he get that from? He got it
I
from
said,
you.
let- I said, what is he telling? He telling me I'm doing too much, and he's busy. I said, nah. It's more important for us to be
Ooh,
productive.
there's so many civils
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
up.
He
Y'all
he
better watch out. They're gonna
he
take over the world.
he
I'm
got it.
glad I already know them.
He's watching. But then there comes a time, brother, information says you need to be productive and not busy. Now I find, and then I had to get comfortable with not necessarily trying to push something,
Mhm.
right? Like, I was pushing things. I was being forceful with things. But I was like, wait, I got comfortable in this time. Now I got this time when I'm just like, I get to do this deeper thinking. I get to be more one spiritually with the creator. I'm just, if I don't find it, I'm just, oh, I got this time now. Let me go outside and take this walk and meditate on something. Let me listen for a little bit. Let me pay attention more. Let me see how I can how I can work on my business. What's more effective for my clients? Like, what makes this how can I be better? Now I'm having the time to do that instead of just being busy, running from one thing to the next. It was one time I was working this, I'm gonna leave it at this. I used to get up, schedule my appointments, and from 11 o'clock in the morning to about 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock, I'm on the road going back home, and I'm just exhausted. And guess what? And I made money, but it was a every 3 months, it was a you had to move it up again. Like, it was a constant, there was no stopping it. It was, and if it, and because if I stopped, nothing, everything stopped.
Hmm.
When
That's
I
what they call
stopped,
that grind.
yeah, that's the grind. Then I said, wait a minute, I need to put the tools in place to where I don't, if I want to stop, I can. I don't have to be doing the 11 to 9. And now, what about my priorities? When we're talking about spiritual and when we're talking about family, I'm trying to find it in the car. You know what I mean? I'm giving my priorities just the space, like the little spaces, right? Or I got to get up earlier. You know what I mean? I'm already getting up at 3, 4 o'clock. I got to get up at 1:30. You know what I mean? So it's just you got to start. We have to work on these things. Once we get the new information, we move. But when you're in relation with people, I'm in relation with my son Elijah. He's 14, and me and him are having these conversations. Hey, listen, I had a conversation with him today. Listen, because he decided he didn't want to stay after school for a sport, and I said, and he wanted to leave. I said, so when did you figure that out? Like 2 o'clock? He said, no, I figured out at 1:50. I said, all right, first I was like, let's not play these games, these semantic games with me. I had a laugh at him. I said, I know what you're doing because I used to do it. You're doing
Oh,
everything. Some of the things it's funny because I forgot these things, but now you're reminding me that I did it as well. So let's be a man. Well, now we're gonna be a man for a little bit. But you're not thinking about other people when you're making these decisions. So now your mother. I said, what time do you think she takes lunch? You know what I mean? So she's thinking she's going to pick you up at 5 as opposed to 3. She might take lunch later or early. Like now you have to. I said you need to start thinking about these things. You have to start, but this is, and me too. So then you give me time to prepare. So we have to have these conversations because first off, I want to make sure you're safe. I want to make sure you're safe and loved, and we know where you are as a father, right? And I'm speaking to you as gently as I can, but we have to work together. Just like he has to work with his mom to figure these things, and I got to work with his mom to figure these things out. So it's like we have to come together. Relationship, even it's no longer what I do, boy. What I do goes. You know what I'm saying? Like this is it. This is it. No, it's like okay, I'm in relation with these people. I'm still the father, right? But we're in relation with these people. The more so you do with your wife, with the vision, the more so you do with your, whatever relations that you have. This is gonna be an awesome thing. I think even and brother, you mentioned something about the identity. We need to take time to talk about that.
yes, we do.
That's a part of the vision because we have to look at what's going on because everything our people are being affected by it. So if you're in a relation with people and this person is getting these ideals and they're bringing it, I call my place my kingdom, right? So it's the kingdom, and you're bringing this stuff into the kingdom, right? Like I would like to know what it is. I like to. This is because it's affecting you. It's affecting them. It's affecting the kids. It's affecting your wives, your girlfriends, whatever it is. It's your mothers, your father. Like these things are affecting them. So as a man, as more so not just men, but Renaissance men, right? Renaissance men,
Hmm.
like as Renaissance men, we have to have our finger on the pulse of it because
Explain what you mean by Renaissance man.
like understanding the zeitgeist of it. It doesn't mean we get caught up in it. It don't mean that because the modern day
Mm.
this modern day thing is because some of this not some a lot of these modern day things aren't based on principle. So we're principle men and we're Renaissance men, which means that we don't hide underneath you know, hide like these things aren't going on. What is it when you tuck your head into the ground?
Mm,
What was
like
the
an
animal that?
ostrich.
Yeah, the ostrich. We don't have the. Well, I don't have the because that's not a part because it'll go against the vision. Like I don't have that luxury, and I never will. Right. So I want to know about these different things, and some of these and figure out whether these things are principled or not. So we will have conversations in regards to this identity thing because it's important. Because what I want to know what the brother is telling his kids.
Mm.
Because if I'm sending my kid over to be with the brother, I want to know what they talk. I need to understand what's going on. Where am I sending? I'm not sending them into the lion's den without the information. Not that the disrespect the brother on the other side of the screen. Not to say that, but I would like to know, and the brother. So my son should know, and essentially we're sending him anyway. He's going to school. So he's going to school, and these things are happening within the school, and he can't come to me, and we can't have this conversation, or I can't go to him and have this conversation about it. We're gonna have these conversations, right? And because
Mm.
we and have it with and not be ignorant about it. I don't want us to be ignorant about these things because every it's a bunch of tribes that are together mingling, and everyone has different thoughts and whatever. And oh man, brother, the culture of the
Mm.
thing. We as I'm gonna call we as black men because the culture in Western society, like we don't know necessarily where we came from. We are fighting against these narratives and this modern thing, and there is a search because most people don't even know where they come from. We can't even have a conversation. It's to the point now where we always use this name Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. We use these names that we know like the back of our, like we know these things, but the younger generation doesn't even know. Remember at one point in time, this thing was beat into your head about whatever. We're getting more information on it, but it was beat into us. Now we have to kind of bring it up because unfortunately these things kind of change, especially with all this information we have now. Oh man,
Mm.
we can go on and on. I know we coming up on the hour.
Yeah,
Uh
that was a lot right there, bro. That was a lot.
we
I mean,
maybe
you open up that door. That was Pandora's box right there.
I think so here's one of the things we definitely got to talk about because the brother and I grow a lot. We have this conversation all the time. It's so much. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it can be overwhelming when we come on this show for an hour and we talk about these things. So being more structured in the show so you all can keep up and keep along with it. What helps also is you all's engagement in the conversation because even though we're doing this thing and it's structured and we come on here, we know what we're going to kind of talk about. When you all engage with us, when we're getting the engagement of us, we can kind of, you're getting we get some different nuances from you all. You all are telling us about your experiences. Personally, it's all the same. However, we can kind of dive deeper into the different nuances of it, right? The different nuances of the vision and how to gain more clarity with the vision, and how we're continuing, we're being more effective. So and this is one of the things I'm going to work on is kind of being more linear in the thought, but sometimes it just it's some things I think we got to have these conversations. So I will when it comes up, we're like, oh yeah, let's expound on it a little bit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You made me think of a book, The Miseducation of the
Oh
Negro.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah. We
that's
got
what
to
you
go
made.
deeper.
Yeah, because we're definitely there, and I know that's a different topic, and we already dove into that just a little bit. I think that will be a great series, to
Mm.
talk about some modern things. Maybe enter into TV, movies, music, black men. The miseducation of the Negro. I know we did one episode that was similar, the miseducation of Mike and Joel.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think that it'll be good for us to go back and just talk some Black history. And I would love to have that. I know that there's some lines with Mike's vision. I know for sure it does. This will be good to be in the analogs of time that this episode is here because one day, our children or our grandchildren or our great grandchildren will stumble upon an old YouTube video and this will teach them some of the things that are not being taught right now. They're not being taught. And I think that some of these things, they need to be taught in a different way. Not just like, hey, Aunt Jemima was black. She never wanted to be on, on the container. So take her off. There's some crazy stuff that has happened over these last 4 years, and it's just erasing Black history. Like, we did not take the pain away from Black people when these things were happening. And now that the fame is here, we take that away. And somebody thought that that was a good idea. Because in one sense, we erased the Black man's history by not allowing that history to be promulgated and perpetuated. And then later, when Black men and women cry out, how could you do that? We erase the history that we know of. So there's just no history of Black people. Like, leave that civil rights. Come on, man. We're supposed to be talking about the vision of the future.
Well, you can't, it's an important thing because you can't, people who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it.
They're doomed to repeat.
So even going into that book, and Marcus Garvey wrote a book, I want to say it's 30 Principles, something like that. And this is like in 1928, 1929. Well, it started Pan African in 1927. So like the book was written like in the 1930s. Miseducation was written around the 1930s as well. And you read it, and you're like, this is just we here. Like it's on steroids at this point. It's the same issues, the same problems. We talking about the same things. 1970 they did in the 1970s, they got a show that they aired. It was about the Black man and the Black woman. The same conversations they were having back then in 1970 is almost the same conversation that they having now on these podcasts in 2024. And it's just being talked about over and over again. It's the same thing. I heard the minister once said in 1970 we spoke about jobs and justice. Then we had 1980s and we were talking about what? Jobs and justice. And he went all the way up to 2010. He was like, but wait a minute. We still talking about, you know what I mean? So it's like at some point in time, it's like not some point that we need to see that. Well, I needed to see it. So, maybe you all need to see it as well. Like
need to see it.
Our children need to see it. And this
so many misdriven Black men right now. I mean, in the culture, you mentioned the culture. Oh man, come on, we're supposed to be closed down. But the culture of this thing, we
can have our last minute rants.
Even when you start talking about something simple like music. When I was coming up, see, that's how it starts. When I was coming up, rappers used to rap about something that actually was happening, something that they were doing, something that was going on in the community. It was an expression, right? These little LIL, these little whatever they are rappers. I mean, I've seen them wearing dresses, painting their fingernails. And then when you listen to the content of what they're saying in these days, there's no story whatsoever. Some of this stuff is just nasty. Some of it's just disrespectful. Some of it's just like, I'm the best rapper type of stuff. Like, what is that? Yeah, I mean, I understand back in the hip hop days, but the hip hop days was more about the exuberance. of getting out and having your own vibe, having your own funk, the heavy D's, having your own funk and dancing to something and being able to enjoy life. And this stuff was just kind of like, move with me. But now they put a little beat that makes you want to move, and you grind, you listen into what they're saying. You're like, I don't want to move to that because I don't agree with any words that you just said. And I'm sure not going to go and buy a dress, a pink skirt, or a wedding dress and go and put that on and show up somewhere. I'm not doing that. Manhood is being ripped away from men, from black men, and black men are okay with it because some of these black men are getting paid $1 to put on these dresses, these skirts, and these things like that. But in the old days, these men, they were like, you ain't gonna see me because I'll punch you in the face. Man.
I want to empower us men, because manhood can't be taken away from us. If anything, you give it up.
They're giving it
And
up.
um we have to get back to the place of the parents
Ooh,
are the
man,
first.
that's deep. No,
The
pause,
parents.
man. Just pause for 1 minute.
Let it
Pause.
breathe. Let it breathe.
Good God, did y'all hear that? Oh man,
From
manhood. I had to take my hat off. Manhood can't be taken away.
you give
You
it
have to
up.
give it up. If you're struggling with your manhood, it's not because they're stripping it away from you. It's because you gave it away.
You give it away. You don't want to, like, when we start talking about manhood, this is not. It's
Mm.
not a. Buju Banton got a song called "It's Not an Easy Road." It's not an easy road. I'm a womanhood. It's not an easy road. We choose not to sacrifice. We choose to go a different route. We choose the easier path. We choose what society puts on us. We're making these choices. So you have to give it up. And and a woman can't make me I this is me. She can't take it from me. Some of us choose to give it to her. Some of us don't know what it looks like,
Woo!
right? So if you're raised in a place where if you're raised in a place when the mothers, if you're raised in a place where you've never seen a man, you don't know, you haven't been exposed to what it looks like, and some of us have even been
Y'all had to
raised
leave the studio. I left the studio.
right, but
I
but
thought y'all was going to start shooting through the camera. I left the studio. I said, "Oh my God, what? Oh
come on,
Lord, what is this man? That man right there, he's spitting fire right now.
this
Woo,
is
I
this
hope
is a
y'all waited
different
to the end of this thing.
right, but this is a lot, right? And we can't, once again, we can't get this through in an hour. So we just touching on it. A lot of like, I think people think we just come up here and we're just talking.
Mm.
I don't, we don't just turn our computers on Fridays or whatever day it is and say, okay, let's just talk. It's a lot of studying, it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of listening, it's mentors, it's education, because we have to discern through a lot of this information that's being given to us as well. So we're discerning. This helps us, you know, this helps to discern some of the stuff, because you say it out loud and you're like, oh, let me get at a second thought. Or the brother can say, well, brother, here's a different perspective when I read this book. However, maybe we have a part where we read this book. So this manhood thing all of a sudden. But if you turn on these podcasts, and we're not excusing people from accountability, right? We're not saying that these people shouldn't be accountable for whatever it is, but we can't give them our manhood for their manhood is not their responsibility. Our manhood is not their responsibility. They can't. So it is what it is. But it's not an easy thing. Sometimes it's lonely. It's gonna get that way sometimes. I love the fact that we've started to say, well, let's have these conversations now. That's great, but we can't leave it there because even as a man, we could only, like, I know me personally, the brother's a little bit better than me, but I can only deal with it for a certain amount of time before I start to saying, as a man, what's the solution to this thing? Because I'm not going to continue. We're not going to continue crying about this thing.
That's it.
Like but here's the
Ain't
thing.
happening.
Some of us have learned from, hell hath no fury, from these certain people who are by nature carry these things. They carry this stuff. You know what I mean? And when I went through family court, I noticed, and I was watching other people's stuff, and even in my own experience, I'm like, wait a minute, you still think about that? This is what you're talking about? We don't. I done move. I'm. I didn't faith past this thing. You know what I mean? Like we're already past this thing, but they hold on to it 12, 5, 10, 50. Oh, I don't, and they'll tell you, I don't even care about it. I don't even care about it. So why are we still talking about it? So if you learn from that, because that's their nature, you started to take on a certain kind of nature. That's not for you. And for a woman, I'm gonna talk to the women now. Femininehood is not based upon a man. A feminine, you being feminine is just you being feminine. You don't become feminine because I'm a man. You was already there. So a lot of you women are wondering, like, why you haven't been picked
Or
to be a
not.
wife or whatever. You haven't been picked. You're not that. Wives don't last long. I tell people this all the time. Wives, in the biblical sense, when we talk about Christianity, they don't last long on the market. They not that. People get them, and if somebody fumbles them, somebody else is gonna pick them up. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, they're not just out here. You ever seen a woman? Her husband died. She was a widow. She's a widow, and she picked up somebody less than a year later or something, because that's what she is. Someone recognizes that value if she decides to go in that route. Like, someone's recognizing that value. And if they're not recognizing it in you, then it's something there. But once again, the exposure from to the brother's point, this entertainment and whatever, I don't even pay attention to it no more. It's all fugazi to me, because I'm gonna make it real simple for you. I think about when I was in school, the kids that were in drama and the kids that participated in those type of activities, and I was in drama as well, but they were a certain type. So now that they're grown and they got money, do you think it makes a difference? Like, they already had these type of thoughts and whatever, right? So we have to take responsibility for that. And now I'm not and instill it in our kids, these different things, so that they can discern. Okay, this rap lyric, because I still listen to rap, right? So I'm listening to the rap lyrics, and I'm more drawn to people who are talking about these experiences, because that's really happening, right? Maybe it doesn't happen to them. Maybe they're telling somebody else's story, whether it's their brother, cousin, someone in the neighborhood, whatever it is. But they're more artistic and they can express it and communicate it. I like to hear that. Like, that's human. This it's almost like Shakespeare type deal. You know what I mean? Like, I listen to it because they're very talented individuals. I mean, how do they do that? But then you also have, when you're battling against demons and you're not discerning, you got war chants in the music. So you're wondering why someone listens to this music and is getting hyped up and ready to fight or whatever it is. And I'm listening to this music. I'm like, man, this dude is like it's a war chant that they've created. And we've so learned to manipulate. Like, it's a science. You think they're just putting music out like this? It's scientific. Everything is so scientific, down to the number, down to how it makes you feel, the vibrations in the music, the 808s, the whatever it is. And they're like, oh, this gets people going. They're gonna buy it. They're gonna spend money. It's gonna make them drink. It's gonna make them do X, X, and O. Like, it's marketing, and it's down to the T. So if you don't have a discerning heart, a discerning spirit, and even sometimes when you have that, if you're constantly listening to it, it's going to kind of veer you off into the direction. But if you have that as a father and manhood coming in here, we instill that foundation to you when we say, okay, you listen to it, but take this back into into the what we talking about. Is it principled? Is it principled? Does it like where is it reaching you? What is it doing for you as we growing up young men? and young women. Like, does it fit into the value of the something from people who actually love you? Okay, well then use it to get hyped to play football or something. You know what I mean? Like, use it to push that extra weight in the gym, but then you put it down and really put it down. They say, man, this is just it was just like an action film. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I was dealing with. It's an action film. This is not your life. It's crazy how you got grown folks who take this and make it think that they're your life. You are not Drake. You are not Sexy Red. You are not like Cardi B, like all these names that they put. You're not that. That's them. And they got their and even and that's not even them. Drake got to go home and be Aubrey. Because if Drake becomes Drake, his everything else is falling apart, which it may or may not be. I don't know, but we have to but we have to instill this because they can't discern between it because they're not being exposed to the real. So as far as us being men and manhood, I'm not paying attention. You can't take this thing from me. I've sacrificed for it. I lose sleep at night for it. Whatever it is that's called upon me to be obedient and submit to this thing, that's what it is. So I'm not just gonna give it to you. Yeah, I love you. Yeah, whatever. But I can't give you this. I can't, because then what I'm left with. And then you're not gonna like me for going along with it. Because who was this guy?
Who was this guy? Where he come from?
Who is this guy? He a sucker. You know what I mean? Like, you gonna call me a sucker, and I'm gonna resent myself for being a sucker. And we've all been suckers. Right? We've all been suckers. I'm not gonna say that.
That's how you learn how to not be one.
You bet, yeah. Quick. That's a lesson that need to be learned, right?
That's a lesson that needs to be learned. There's some lessons that some of these people ain't learning because it's such an accepting society of doing whatever you want to do, be whatever you want to be.
But let them. But as for me and my house,
yeah, we shall serve the Lord.
You hear what I'm saying? Hey,
man has to draw his line.
That's for me and my house. Hey, I love you, but that's for me and my house.
But y'all got a taste. That's a preview.
Yeah.
That ain't next week.
Yeah, it can't be next week, is it? But that'll be fun. That's gonna be fun, and we get deeper into this stuff, man.
Maybe that'll be the next series.
It could be, man. I know. Here's one thing. I know we got to put out more content. I know that's definitely a thought when we come together and have this conversation about how we move forward with Community Beacon.
Have to mic y'all over.
Huh?
I don't know what happened to Mike. Who is that man over there?
Yeah, we definitely gotta come out with more content. So we'll see. Anyways, what's the last word, brother?
Man, ain't nobody taking that last word from you. That was it. I'm gonna leave it right there. I want them to go back and watch the last 25 minutes of this thing because Mike went off.
It was fun.
There's a man that needs to hear all of that stuff. So
yeah.
Leave it there, y'all. Leave it there. Leave it right there. I hope
love y'all, man. I love y'all. I love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
We'll see you all. We'll see you next week, man. Let's get clear. Let's get focused. Let's move forward. Peace.
Peace, y'all.